What's up, Taiwan? I'm Brossard with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's defense ministry says China may be ready to conduct military exercises after it reported a surge in activity from China's Air Force. Jaime Okan reports.
Taiwan's military says as of 8:42 a.m. in the morning, China has designated a zone for live-fire shooting drills just 75 kilometers off the coast of the southern city of Kaohsiung. Taiwan's military is also reporting 32 military aircraft operating in the region as part of a joint combat readiness patrol. That means that Chinese ships and vessels are coordinating with each other as part of the patrol. China's foreign ministry says that this zone is not a question of foreign affairs. Well, we don't know how long the drills will last. What we do know is that the zone is in international waters, and China gave no proper warning before the shooting drills started. In fact, only a radio warning was issued just shortly before the zone became public. That's drawing an angry response from Taiwan's defense ministry here in Taipei.
所谓的联合战备警巡期间，更公然违反国际惯例，无预警在距我国高雄屏东外海约40海里处海域划设操演区，宣称将进行射击训练。对此，国防部表达严厉谴责，并及时检派海空以及陆岸兵力监控警戒，适切应处。
In addition to that, Taiwan's military is also pointing to the short-notice live-fire exercises that China conducted last week off the coast of Australia, saying that this activity undermines the status quo and that it's a clear demonstration that China is the biggest threat to peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. Ryan Wu and Jaime Okan in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Coast Guard has detained the crew of a Chinese-linked ship suspected of damaging one of the country's undersea cables and says it cannot rule out the possibility that the vessel was engaged in gray zone harassment. All 8 crew members are Chinese nationals. As Jaime Okan reports, Taiwan's vital communications cables are coming under increasing threat.
This is the moment Taiwan's Coast Guard stops and intercepts a suspicious ship on Tuesday afternoon. Called the Hongtai, it had been sailing in waters off the coast of Tainan for almost 3 days and flying under the flag of the West African nation of Togo. But after a submarine cable was cut, the Coast Guard moved in. The ship and its 8 crew, all Chinese nationals, are now detained and under investigation for damaging the cable. China's foreign ministry is downplaying the issue.
我不了解你提到的有关情况，这也不是一个外交问题。
China sees Taiwan as part of its own territory and has upped its threats to take the island by force. Not only deploying dozens of aircraft and Navy ships around Taiwan every week, but also using its Coast Guard and fishing fleets to harass Taiwan's maritime border. Exchanges like this one between the two countries are now a regular occurrence.
中国海警14608，这里是中华民国海巡署 PP356警广播，你已进入中华民国境限制水域，严正户外需和平稳定，影响海上航行安全及操作秩序，请立即转向驶离，请立即转向驶离。
But now Taiwan is facing a new kind of threat, with suspicious ships similar to the Hongtai loitering around Taiwan and keeping the country on alert. Many analysts say that the ships are part of a shadow fleet from China, secretly looking to sabotage Taiwan's 14 undersea internet cables, which are vital to keeping Taiwan connected with the rest of the world. So far this year, 3 cables have been damaged or completely cut.
This is clearly an orchestrated campaign, and we don't have to think very hard to think about who might be behind such a campaign, who would want to harass Taiwan in this way. I think that Taiwan now lives in is you have to now start thinking in terms of building your resilience against attacks like this.
This incident is raising concerns, however, about how these mystery ships are operating around Taiwan. Observers say that the Hongtai, under a different name, had been sailing around Taiwan before, also near cable areas. The ship has used different names to hide its identity and also disguised its signal, making it harder to track. That's a tactic that's growing more common.
If you see that a ship is sort of loitering around a particular area, and then the next day you look and there's a different ship loitering there, but actually it's the same ship, but maybe you don't notice that because you don't take the time to dig into it or whatever. So, it's just one more way for them to make themselves a little harder to keep track of.
According to Taiwan's National Security Bureau, in the past few years, Taiwan's undersea cables have been damaged or cut an average of 8 times a year. And with each cable taking roughly 2 months to repair, Taiwan needs to think carefully about whether it doubles down on cable defense or looks for an alternative way to stay connected. Justin Wu and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is apparently taking part in the Cobra Gold military exercise in Thailand for the first time. Taiwan was mentioned as a participant in a post on Cobra Gold's official Facebook page. However, hours later, the page was altered to remove Taiwan's name for unknown reasons. TaiwanPlus has reached out to the Defense Ministry, which is yet to comment on Taiwan's participation. Cobra Gold is Asia's largest annual multilateral exercise, which began in 1982. The core participants in the drills are the US, Thailand, Japan, Singapore, South Korea, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Ukraine and the United States have reportedly agreed to the terms of a deal involving Ukraine's rare earth minerals, ahead of an expected meeting on Friday between US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. While the terms of the deal remain under wraps, it's another part of the major shift in US policy toward Ukraine. Chris Gordon reports.
Controlled explosions at Ukrainian mines like these could be key to the country's survival. Ukraine and the United States have reportedly reached a deal on rare earth minerals. While the terms of the deal have not been publicly disclosed, the agreement could be signed as early as Friday, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky makes a visit to Washington.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly, it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal.
Trump also signaled a willingness for a peacekeeping force to be deployed in Ukraine following a ceasefire in the current conflict, though implied Russia might need to agree.
But you're going to need some form of peacekeeping, so something will be done that's going to be satisfactory to everybody.
Trump's demand for access to Ukraine's minerals comes as Kyiv seeks to shore up support in Washington, its largest single source of military aid, in its fight against Russia's 3-year invasion. Trump has promised to make a deal that brings a swift end to the war. But what exactly are rare earth minerals?
Rare earth elements are not actually rare. They've held on to that name since the late 1700s. They're used in all manner of electronics, technologies, and high-performance alloys.
Beyond ensuring supplies of the critical metals for American companies, the U.S. may have another strategic concern: China.
Trump wants rare earths because the American economy is highly dependent on Chinese sources, and it's an economic and national security risk. And in order to avoid that the Chinese will take over Ukrainian rare earths commodities and build up potential mines there, it's an option for the Americans.
The proposed deal comes amid a sea change in the U.S. position on the war in Ukraine, shocking its European allies, many of which may be headed for a major realignment of their post-war security agreements.
This idea that everything depends on American security guarantees is understandable that European leaders feel that way because that's the world they've lived in for the last 80 years. But that's no longer the world they live in. They need an independent defense policy, and they need stronger, bigger militaries and defense industries to defend themselves.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, for example, is cutting foreign aid and aiming to raise defense spending to as high as 3% of GDP.
So starting today, I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defense spending since the end of the Cold War.
Whatever the terms of the rare earths deal, U.S. allies from Europe to Ukraine are struggling to keep up with a rapidly changing security situation as Trump upends the long-established Western-led world order. James Lin and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol defended his December declaration of martial law in the closing statement of his impeachment trial.
비상계엄의 목적이 망국적 위기 상황을 알리고 헌법 제정 권력인 주권자들께서 나서 주시기를 호소하는 것이었는데
Yoon is accused of declaring martial law without valid reason and faces removal if the Constitutional Court upholds his impeachment. He says he was trying to warn of the opposition Democratic Party's abuse of their parliamentary majority and that the action was not out of personal interest. If Yoon is removed, a presidential election must be held within 60 days. 18 people have been killed in a bus crash in Thailand. The bus's brakes may have failed as it was going down a hill. It was one of 3 buses taking local officials on a field trip in Prachinburi province to the east of Bangkok. The crash comes almost 5 months after a fire on a school bus in Thailand killed over 20 children. One of the worst flu outbreaks in a decade is swamping hospitals across Taiwan, and while most attention has so far focused on big urban hospitals and prestigious medical centers, even smaller regional hospitals are overwhelmed. John Van Trieste has this story.
Yet another ambulance arrives at Wei-Yin Christian Hospital in southern Taiwan. The patient inside can expect a long wait. In the last week alone, 130,000 people flooded medical centers across the country with flu symptoms, part of an outbreak that is among the worst in 10 years. Here at Wei-Yin Christian Hospital, the situation is bleak, with wait times for admission at over 2 days.
平均跟前几年的即使是跟过年比较的话，大概都多了2成以上的病人。
While big city hospitals have to carry much of the burden, they at least have bigger staff used to a heavy patient load. In smaller cities like Jiayi, though, smaller local hospitals are all there are, and they're getting overwhelmed. Some doctors have said the fact that anyone can visit an emergency room and expect treatment, regardless of how serious their condition is, has contributed to the problem.
受苦的是民众，受害的是所有人，所有 崩溃的是急诊的医护人员，我们就觉得说，怎么会一个政策搞到这样一个状况，就很灰心。
A chronic nursing shortage and the fact several hundred nurses a month are quitting for other jobs are making things worse. And while an end to the flu season is in sight, health officials expect hospitals will have to hold on as best they can for several more weeks, maybe until the end of March. For now, officials are urging people to get vaccinated and avoid emergency rooms in all but the most serious cases.
如果您是轻症的患者，那我们不要就去，我们可以多多利用我们诊所或者是医院的门诊来就医。
Given the severity of this year's flu season, with 23 patients dying in just the last week, the trying times aren't ending soon for Taiwan's doctors and nurses. Alex Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese airline EVA Air is banning the use and charging of power banks during flights starting March 1st due to safety concerns. The policy change follows a recent fire on a South Korean Busan Air flight that authorities suspect was caused by an overheated power bank. EVA Air already prohibits power banks and spare lithium batteries in checked luggage. Taiwanese carriers Starlux and Tiger Air Taiwan also bar in-flight power bank use, and China Airlines will begin prohibiting them on flights from March as well. A veteran Taiwanese baseball player is leaving the game. Pitcher Wei-Yin Chen announced his retirement on Wednesday after a career spanning 20 years. Chen played for the Baltimore Orioles and the Miami Marlins in the U.S. Major Leagues, and also for several teams in Japan. He also represented Taiwan at the Olympics in 2004 and 2008. In 2020, Chen was the highest paid player of the Major League season, earning $22 million. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more of our stories. Now, before we go, join us at the Pet Expo in Vietnam, where dogs and cats showcased their latest trends. I'm Philip Brossard. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan, around the world, and Washington, D.C., please download the TaiwanPlus app and follow us on social media.